Welcome. I'm Elaine Eason Steele, co-founder of the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development with Rosa Parks. Co-founded the Institute in 1987. I learned about Rosa Parks in school like many students did. And I think it was the third grade, perhaps, that I learned about Mrs. Parks. So when I had the opportunity to meet her, which was still in elementary school, but I think I was about in the fifth grade. When I was in Cass Technical High School, I got an after school job at the Stockton sewing factory. When I started working there, she was my seatmate. And to say that I was more than excited is putting it mildly. It was, just a complete joy. To My sewing machine was next to Mrs. Park's sewing machine. And it was just a plum pleasing pleasure to be sitting next to her, to history, to someone that everyone knew. And and she was just a joy. At the federal building, I worked for the United States District Court, and Mrs. Parks worked for Congressman John Conyers. And I did some volunteer work for the congressman. And when I was up there one day to work, and Mrs. Parks came in, I said, "Oh, Mrs. Parks," and she said, "Oh, Elaine." And we renewed our friendship, and we were just tight ever since. And that friendship continued. Found out that Mrs. Parks and I lived in the same neighborhood, and we began traveling home together. Mrs. Parks, uh, in fact, loved Raymond dearly, wanted him to be recognized because he had sacrificed so much for her and the community. And he enjoyed working with and for the community. And she wanted him to continue in a spot, in a place where he was still recognized. Purpose of the Institute is to motivate youth between the ages of 11 and 17 to reach their highest potential. And since we were so blessed to have Rosa Parks amongst us, and most of the young people had heard the name, but to be in her presence was indeed an honor. And, anything she said, they thought was gold was dripping from her lips. So whatever she said, they wanted to know more about. And, so the fact that she lived in Detroit, close to many of them, that she wanted to share her experiences with them, that made them feel very important and made them want to learn more about her, their history, and the civil rights movement in general. How we brought the pathways freedom to life for the students of the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute was that we would take them to the sites. We traveled not only in Detroit, where the Institute was founded, but we went to Alabama, where Mrs. Parks and Mr. Parks were born and lived for many years before moving to Detroit. They were able to see those old home sites. They were able to go and visit the churches that they in fact, attended or were members of. So there was a lot of things that the young people enjoyed doing because they were in the presence of Mrs. Rosa Parks, and they indeed knew how famous she was, and they came to understand Mr. Parks and his contributions to the movement too. Became the best of friends, and I began to travel with her throughout the world, actually, because not only did we go throughout the United States, but we also traveled to Europe and to Africa. So it was really a very, very historical time, as well as an educational time, and being with her. Mrs. Parks was a very mild and meek and warm person to everyone she came in contact with. Now, occasionally there would be some people that wanted to push her over the edge. And when that occurred, she handled it very ladylike and um, ended the conversation. It was just a joy to listen to her because people wanted to hear that soft spoken voice and how clear she was about the experiences she had had. Rosa Parks invited you. You didn't need any money or anything, you just came. Her response to any of us was the same as she would make to dignitaries. She was just Rosa Parks, throughout her life. And it was just a pleasure being with someone who was not only committed but dedicated uh, to teaching the history of their people. Parks was very pleased, as most people were, to meet Nelson Mandela. And it was, when they met, it was a wonderful time because they were just as enthusiastic about the other. He was enthusiastic about her, she was enthusiastic about meeting him. And they just had a quick but wonderful conversation. And as he disembarked from the plane when he arrived from South Africa, the first person that he recognized was Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks. He was so excited to meet her. And it was very interesting to me uh, because I expected it. But the other people who had come to greet him, they were, they like wanted to be recognized. And when he only knew Mrs. Parks and was only interested in Mrs. Parks, they were just a little bit thrown off base. Civil rights movement um, is something that I hope will always be studied. I would like to thank everybody responsible for helping us to learn more about President Nelson Mandela, as well as Mother Rosa Parks, mother of the Civil Rights Movement.